Hello, everyone. This is Joshua from Ask a Child Whisperer, and I wanted to jump on to give you some tips about a frequently asked question: restaurants. The hell that can be restaurants, the joy that seems so elusive when it comes to restaurants and children. What is it like when you're dining with other people? The pressures, the discomfort, the possible tantrums, the naughty, sassy behavior. How do you do restaurants? And what I want to tell you is, yes, you can hearken back to an old time when we just went to the restaurant and we just sat there. But remember, when you think back of how you behave, more than likely, depending on when and how you were raised, there was the threat of physical violence, which kept many of us in check because we would see kids getting spanked, slapped, smacked, whatever. So that was a really powerful deterrent in many of our lives. I'm assuming many of you are not using that strategy. You're trying to raise your kids without putting your hands on them. And so that's where a lot of the disequilibrium happens. You don't remember the actual threat that caused you to stay in line. So remember, staying in line doesn't mean you were actually successful at sitting at a restaurant. It means you did well enough to please the adults in front of you. So a lot of kids don't remember eating at restaurants because more than likely they disassociated. They went somewhere in their head to keep themselves entertained. Some of you may have just shut down because you were so uncomfortable by what was going to happen, right? You were going to eat stuff you didn't like. You were going to be sitting there for long periods of time with people you didn't necessarily want to sit across from or next to. So there was a lot of survival mechanisms that you probably implemented. And I don't think that's what we're going toward when we're talking about successful restaurant experience with our children. I think we don't want them to survive it. I think we actually want it to be semi-enjoyable, a little bit annoying because, there's things that we can't control. But I think what we all actually want is a fun, interactive experience with our friends or with our family members. So if we keep that as the goal, then I think we lower the bar. We lower the bar so that we can actually increase our child's ability to enjoy themselves under different circumstances that may or may not be ideal, right? So first off, if you really are foodies and you want to be able to go to a restaurant with kids, then I suggest if that is our ultimate goal, then we have to slow grow toward that. That means that when you get to a restaurant, you have to have your kids try to do parts of it. So instead of you doing the job of restaurant, asking for the menu, reading the menu, ordering, you start leaning into letting your kid do those elements. Can you tell them how many people are here? Can you tell them the name of our party? Oh, can you follow the waiter? And then we'll follow you. So you start giving them some of the pleasure of those tiny steps toward dining, instead of them automatically going on autopilot and they have no choice and they're kind of it's like a tractor beam, right? They're just being taken here, taken there. And so there is no autonomy. There is no ability to be their own little person. So we need the experience to be much more interactive as early on as your kid can handle it. So if you have a kid who is risk averse, they don't want to talk to people, they don't want to do any of the, hey, this is our name, or this is how many people, you can still ask them. You can say, oh, should I say daddy's last name or my last name this time around? Can you double check how many of us there are? Okay, how many should I say? Okay, so your kid is still going through the process, but through you. That is equivalent, it's helpful, it warms them up to the experience. Again, if you're trying to get to ultimately we can eat a whole meal, you need to start off with, you order maybe an appetizer and you order your kid's main meal. So it comes at the same time. And then you're eating together. Maybe you ask for your main dish wrapped up to go so that it's a shorter experience, but everyone feels satiated. It feels like you did something. If you need a to-go plate, then the kids ask for the to-go plates. the to-go boxes. And in between is, what do you play or talk about while you wait for your food? So remember, what did some of you do? And depending on how lax your parents were, some of you maybe lined up the sugar packets and made a row. Some of you guessed how many sugar packets there were. Maybe you guessed how many Splenda versus regular sugar versus brown sugar. These are all things that kids can do to pass time. You can play who can stack the sugars without them falling, right? These are table appropriate games if you're in a more relaxed, casual restaurant, that your kids learn, oh, this is how I entertain myself, but this is also how I engage with the people who are with me. When you go directly to media, remember that you make dining something then that must be survived. So they set up with a different strategy whenever you're hit upon uncomfortable or unpreferred experiences. They're like, how can I check out completely? And so that's why I tend to not use media. If you want to use media, I suggest having your kids scroll through photos, because that allows for more interactive. Oh, mommy, look at this picture. Do you remember? Or even you scrolling and showing one picture to everyone at the table, and then you discuss that one memory or that one experience based off the one photo. So technology is not good or bad, but you have to use it in a way that stimulates the growth that we're looking toward. That dining is kind of a meeting of the village. It's a collaborative, cooperative experience. It's enjoyable. So you have to do things where kids aren't like, here, you be quiet, you distract yourself, and then we're trying to hurry up and have a good time. Because whenever your kid interrupts or has a hard time, it's very abrupt and shocking to you, right? So it's all about the slow grow. What is your goal toward eating out? If you really feel like, I just need to eat out, I just need a meal I'm not preparing, I need to relax myself, then I would tell you, do that without children. Because you have to really be mindful of, I'm coaching my kids that this is fun and this is something that we do, as opposed to, oh my God, they're dragging me down, they're sucking the life out of me. So again, when you're going to go out to eat at a restaurant, be very clear about your goal. Order something that's going to come quick, so it comes at the time that your children's plates come. Try to be as interactive and have conversations, chit chat back and forth. What can you do at the table while you wait? You can count forks, you can count knives, you can say, oh, these napkins are much different than the ones we have at home. There's lots of things that you can talk about. You can say, are there other children here? Oh, do you want to use a booster, or do you think you want to sit in your chair yourself this time? So there's lots of conversation that can be had. Always keep it short and on a good note. Why? Because then your kid remembers it wasn't that bad or it was fun. How you end a dining experience gives you the legs that you're going to use the next time you sit down to dine. So always try to end on a good note. So some of you are going to ask, what if my kid says something rude? What if my kid crawls under the table? Then it really depends on temperament. Some kids I can say, remember, we're sitting and we're going to eat. And then after you eat 3 bites, then we can take a break outside. Or, oh, why don't you sit down? Just say, mommy, I need to stretch my legs. So teach them what to say when they've hit a wall. So instead of lecturing, you don't get under the table, it's dirty, da, 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 because as soon as that nagging sounds familiar, they're going to block you out. So instead, when they do something you don't want, I tell them, what is the phrase to get them out of this uncomfortable situation? Wait, okay, sit back down. Instead of crawling under the table, say, I need to move my legs. And then I can say, oh, do you want to go outside and walk up and down? Oh, do you want to sit on my lap for a second? So I'm teaching my kid, how can they express that they are no longer on board? How can I express I'm bored? How can I express this is taking too long? So what can I tell you versus just acting out to give myself some relief? So remember, when your kid acts up at a restaurant, it generally is they've hit a wall and they don't know what else to do. So it's not them against you, it's them not even knowing they can ask that, what do I do now? They don't know that that is possible. So we have to teach them. So when they do something you don't like, you say, oh, you're wondering what to do with your hands, instead of stop touching everything on the table. It's like, oh, your hands need something to do. Here, I have an idea. So that's why also having paper or a pen in your purse is ideal, because you can say, draw the fork that's next to you, and then give me my turn, and then I'm going to draw the fork, and let's see what we think of our forks. Or there's, you can do the dot to dot to dot game where you create boxes, right? To see who creates the most boxes. There's lots of things that you could do at the table so that children see, I am also bored, but these are the things that I do. Here's my boredom repertoire when I'm out eating. I hope this is helpful. It's a bunch of little tidbits. Use whichever strategy you think will work for you. And remember, kids who generally are really great at restaurants have a particular temperament that they can read it, they feel comfortable. Generally, they're kind of fine with whatever they eat. So remember, you're not comparing apples and oranges. If there's a kid who I call the unicorn, who's like, they never scream, they never cry, they can sit through, like an hour and a half at a restaurant. If your kid is in a similar temperament, you're just hitting yourself head against the wall. You're not comparing like people. So remember, not some kids have to slow grow into being able to do this, and that is okay, because our ultimate goal is for your child to have an enjoyable experience. We don't want kids that just survive experiences. I hope this was helpful. If you want to talk more in detail about dining out or something else out in the world that you're trying to figure out how to get your kid to do a little better or with a bit more joy, please reach out to me, info@askthechildwhisperer.com, or on Instagram, Ask the Child Whisperer. Have a great rest of the day.